You'll never be good enough for this family. Those were the words my daughter-in-law said to me on the night she moved into my house. I kept silent for 3 years. But on the day she tried to take everything from me, the truth finally came out and it destroyed her. Let me tell you something about silence. People think it means weakness. They think if you don't fight back, if you don't scream, if you don't defend yourself, it's because you have nothing to say. But sometimes silence is the loudest thing in the room. Sometimes silence is a mother swallowing her pride so her son can sleep peacefully at night. Sometimes silence is a woman choosing love over war, over and over again, until the day comes when silence is no longer enough. My name is Eleanor Price. I am 61 years old. I have worked every single day of my life since I was 16. I raised 2 children alone after my husband died of a heart attack at 43, leaving me with a mortgage I couldn't afford, a refrigerator that was always half empty, and 2 boys who needed me to be both mother and father overnight. And I did it. I didn't do it gracefully. I didn't do it perfectly. There were nights I cried into my pillow so hard my body shook, nights I counted coins on the kitchen counter trying to figure out if we could afford both electricity and groceries that month. But I did it. My boys grew up fed, clothed, educated, and loved. My oldest, Nathan, became an engineer. And my youngest, Ryan, became a doctor. A doctor. My baby boy, the one who used to fall asleep on my lap while I read him bedtime stories, the one who once told me he wanted to be a superhero when he grew up, he became a doctor. And every time I saw him in that white coat, every time someone called him Dr. Price, I felt something swell inside my chest that no word in the English language could capture. It was bigger than pride. It was proof. Proof that every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every skipped meal had meant something. So when Ryan brought home a woman named Vanessa and told me he was in love, I wanted to be happy. I wanted to welcome her with open arms. I wanted to believe that the woman my son had chosen would see the same goodness in him that I had spent a lifetime nurturing. But from the very first moment Vanessa looked at me, I felt something cold settle in my stomach. Something wrong. She was beautiful. I'll give her that. Tall, slender, with sharp cheekbones and dark hair that fell like silk over her shoulders. She dressed like she'd stepped out of a magazine, designer bags, heels that clicked against my old tile floors like a metronome counting down to something inevitable. The first time Ryan brought her to dinner, she looked around my house, the house I had fought tooth and nail to keep, and smiled the kind of smile that doesn't reach the eyes. "It's cozy," she said, running a manicured finger along the edge of my dining table. The same table where I had helped my boys with their homework every night for 15 years. "Thank you," I said, choosing to take it as a compliment even though her tone made it clear it wasn't one. Over dinner, she barely touched my food. I had made pot roast, Ryan's favorite since he was 12. When I set the plate in front of her, she pushed the potatoes around with her fork and said, "I'm actually on a cleanse right now. No carbs, no dairy, no gluten." "Oh," I said. "I wish I had known. I could have made something else." She waved her hand dismissively. "Don't worry about it. Ryan and I usually eat at this wonderful French place downtown. The chef trained in Lyon." Ryan shifted uncomfortably in his seat. "Mom's pot roast is legendary, Vanessa. You should at least try it." She laughed, a high, tinkling laugh that sounded rehearsed. "I'm sure it's wonderful for a home-cooked meal." For a home-cooked meal. I let it go. Mothers do that. We let things go because the alternative, confrontation, conflict, the risk of pushing our children away, is too terrifying to consider. So I smiled, cleared the dishes, and told myself she was just nervous. Meeting your boyfriend's mother is stressful. She'd warm up. She didn't warm up. Ryan proposed to Vanessa 6 months later. He called me first, his voice vibrating with excitement. "Mom," she said, "yes. We're getting married." I pressed the phone against my ear and closed my eyes, willing myself to feel nothing but joy. "That's wonderful, sweetheart. I'm so happy for you." And part of me was. The part that loved Ryan more than anything in this world wanted him to have everything: love, partnership, happiness. But the other part, the part that had watched Vanessa's behavior over those 6 months, felt a knot tighten in my chest. Because in those 6 months, I had seen things. Small things. Things that most people would dismiss as personality quirks or cultural differences, or simply the way modern women behaved. Like the way Vanessa talked about Ryan's colleagues' wives, mocking their clothes, their weight, their lack of sophistication. Like the way she controlled every social situation, deciding which friends they would see, which events they would attend, which invitations they would decline. Like the way she subtly redirected every conversation back to herself, her career in real estate, her connections, her ambitions. And then there were the comments about me. Ryan, does your mother really need to call every single day? I think it's sweet that she still clips coupons. Very retro. You know, my mother redecorated her house 3 times last year. Maybe Eleanor could use some fresh ideas. Each comment was wrapped in silk, soft enough to seem harmless, sharp enough to draw blood. And Ryan, blinded by love, never noticed the cuts. The wedding was extravagant. Vanessa insisted on a venue that cost more than my annual salary at the hospital cafeteria where I'd worked for 22 years. 300 guests, most of whom I didn't know. A 5-tier cake that cost $4,000. Fresh flowers imported from Holland. I offered to help with the planning. Vanessa patted my hand and said, "That's sweet, Eleanor, but I think we have very different tastes. I wouldn't want you to feel overwhelmed." I offered to pay for the rehearsal dinner. She raised an eyebrow. "Oh, that's generous, but we've already booked the country club. It might be a little above your budget." I offered to make the wedding favors small jars of homemade jam, a recipe passed down from my grandmother. She actually laughed. "Homemade jam? At a black tie wedding?" She turned to Ryan. "Your mother is adorable. Adorable. Like a pet. Like a child. Like something small and insignificant that amused her." I bit my tongue so hard I tasted blood. At the reception, I was seated at table 12. Not table 1 with the family. Not table 2 with close relatives. Table 12. Near the kitchen. With Ryan's college roommate's parents and a couple who turned out to be Vanessa's real estate clients. When I asked Ryan about it, he looked embarrassed. Vanessa handled the seating chart. "Mom, I'm sure it was just an oversight." It wasn't an oversight. And we both knew it. But the moment that shattered something inside me, the moment I will never forget as long as I live, happened during the reception speeches. Vanessa's mother, a tall woman in a cream-colored gown dripping with diamonds, took the microphone and gave a speech about how proud she was of her daughter, how Vanessa had married well, how the future was bright for the young couple. Then she said, almost as an afterthought, "And of course, we're grateful to Ryan's mother, Eleanor," I whispered from table 12, but no one heard. "For raising such a fine young man. It takes a village, as they say." She laughed. The room laughed. And then she moved on to toast the bride's beauty, the bride's accomplishments, the bride's future. Not a word about my sacrifices. Not a word about the woman who had held Ryan through fevers and nightmares and heartbreaks. Not a word about the mother who had worked double shifts to pay for his medical school applications. I sat at table 12, applauding politely, my heart crumbling like dry bread. After the wedding, things escalated. Ryan and Vanessa bought a house, a gorgeous 4-bedroom in the suburbs. But within a year, Vanessa's real estate business hit a rough patch. Deals fell through. Clients disappeared. The mortgage on their oversized house became a boulder around their necks. That's when Vanessa came up with an idea. Eleanor should move in with us, she announced one evening over dinner at their place. I nearly choked on my water. Ryan looked equally stunned. "Think about it," Vanessa continued, her voice smooth as honey. "She's all alone in that old house. She could sell it and use the money to help with expenses here. Plus, she'd be closer to us. It's a win-win." "Vanessa," Ryan said carefully, "Mom loves her house. It's falling apart, Ryan. The roof leaks. The plumbing is ancient. She's spending money on repairs she can't afford. This is the practical solution." She looked at me with those sharp, calculating eyes. "What do you think, Eleanor? Wouldn't it be nice to be closer to your son?" And that's where she had me. Because she knew that being close to Ryan was the one thing I couldn't resist. She weaponized my love for my own child. Against my better judgment, I agreed. I sold my house, the house where I had raised my boys, where their heights were marked in pencil on the kitchen doorframe, where every creak and groan of the floorboards sounded like a lullaby. I sold it for $240,000. Vanessa suggested I contribute $150,000 toward their mortgage. Just to help out while things are tight, she said. We're family, after all. Family. The word tasted like ash. I handed over the money. Every penny I had saved. My safety net. My security. Gone. Because my son's wife asked, and because I loved my son more than I loved myself. And then, the night I moved into their guest room, the smallest room in the house, tucked at the end of a hallway like an afterthought, Vanessa came to my door. She leaned against the frame, arms crossed, and looked at me with an expression I had never seen before. It was stripped of all pretense, all performance. It was raw contempt. Let me make something clear, she said quietly. You're here because I allow you to be here. This is my house, my rules, my family. You cook, you clean, you stay out of my way. And if you ever try to turn Ryan against me, I will make sure you end up in a nursing home so fast your head will spin. My mouth went dry. She tilted her head. You'll never be good enough for this family, Eleanor. You're a cafeteria worker. My mother is a socialite. You clip coupons. I close million-dollar deals. You are here because I need someone to watch the house and do the laundry. That's your role now. Understand? I stared at her. My vision blurred. My hands trembled at my sides. Do you understand? She repeated, her voice harder now. I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because in that moment, I was so shocked, so gutted, so completely broken that I couldn't form a single word. She smiled. Good. Welcome home, Eleanor. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the hardwood floors like a countdown. For 3 years, I lived like a ghost in my own son's house. I woke at 5 every morning to prepare breakfast. I cleaned the kitchen, the bathrooms, the floors. I did laundry, ironed clothes, organized closets. When Vanessa hosted dinner parties for her clients, I cooked elaborate meals and then ate alone in my room because she said my presence at the table would be awkward. It's a business dinner, Eleanor. These people expect a certain atmosphere. Ryan noticed some of it. He'd come to my room at night, sit on the edge of my bed, and say, "Mom, are you okay? You seem tired." "I'm fine, sweetheart," I'd say, smiling. Always smiling. Just adjusting. He'd squeeze my hand and leave, and I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, wondering when my life had become this, a woman invisible in her own family, reduced to a servant in a house she'd helped pay for. But I endured. I endured because Ryan was happy. He was thriving at the hospital. He was saving lives. And when he came home and told me about his patients, his eyes lit up the same way they had when he was a little boy telling me about the bugs he'd found in the garden. That light, his light, was worth every humiliation. Or so I told myself. Then came the day everything changed. It was a Tuesday. Unremarkable in every way except that it would become the most important day of my life. Vanessa had left her laptop open on the kitchen counter. She never did that. She guarded that laptop like it contained state secrets. But that morning, she'd rushed out for a meeting, leaving it behind with the screen glowing. I wasn't snooping. I was wiping down the counter. But the email on the screen caught my eye because it contained my name. Eleanor Price, property transfer. My blood went cold. I leaned in, my heart hammering, and read the email chain. It was between Vanessa and a lawyer, not the family's lawyer, but someone I'd never heard of. The emails detailed a plan to transfer the deed of the house entirely into Vanessa's name, using my financial contribution as leverage. Because I had paid cash and hadn't insisted on a formal agreement, because I had trusted my own family, there was no legal record that the money was a loan or an investment. Vanessa was arguing that it had been a gift. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst part was the final email, sent just 3 days ago. Once the transfer is complete, we can proceed with Phase 2. The assisted living facility in Henderson has availability starting next month. We'll frame it as a health concern, early signs of memory loss, difficulty with daily tasks. Ryan won't fight it if he thinks it's for her own good. His mother is sentimental, but he's practical. He'll agree. Phase 2. They were going to put me in a nursing home. Not because I was sick. Not because I needed care. But because I was inconvenient. Because I had served my purpose, handed over my money, cleaned their house, stayed quiet, and now it was time to be disposed of. My hands shook so violently I knocked a glass off the counter. It shattered on the floor, and I stood there among the broken pieces, feeling like one of them. I could have collapsed. I could have cried. I could have crawled into my room and surrendered to the despair that pressed down on me like a concrete slab. But instead, something ignited. Deep in my chest, beneath years of silence and submission, a spark caught fire. It started small, a flicker of anger, of defiance, of the same stubborn determination that had kept me alive through 20 years of single motherhood. I wasn't going to let this happen. Not today. Not ever. I didn't confront Vanessa. I didn't tell Ryan. Not yet. Instead, I did something I should have done 3 years ago. I fought back, quietly, strategically, and with the kind of patience that only a woman who has survived decades of hardship can muster. First, I took photos of every email on Vanessa's laptop. Every single one. I forwarded them to a new email address I created, then deleted the forwarding records. My hands were trembling the entire time, but I did it. Then I called Linda, my oldest friend, the one who'd stood beside me at my husband's funeral, the one who'd helped me fill out financial aid forms for Ryan's college applications. Linda's daughter, Sarah, was a lawyer. A damn good one. Linda, I said, my voice steadier than I expected. I need Sarah's help. It's urgent. Within 48 hours, Sarah had reviewed everything. Her face was pale when she looked up from the documents. Eleanor, this is fraud. She's trying to steal your money and your housing rights. And this nursing home scheme, if we can prove she's fabricating a health concern to have you committed, that's elder abuse. Elder abuse. The words hit me like a bucket of ice water. What do I do? I whispered. I found bank statements showing that Vanessa's real estate business wasn't just struggling, it had been hemorrhaging money for 2 years. She was hundreds of thousands of dollars in debt. Deals she claimed to have closed were fabrications. Client testimonials on her website were fake. The entire empire she'd built her identity around was a house of cards, and it was collapsing. I discovered that the country club memberships and networking dinners she charged to their joint account were actually personal expenses, designer shopping sprees, spa weekends, trips with a group of women who called themselves the inner circle but who were really just enablers of each other's excess. And then I found something that made my stomach turn. Hidden in a folder on her laptop, buried beneath layers of mislabeled files, was a second email account. And in that account were messages to a man named Derek Holloway. The messages were intimate, explicit, and recent. Vanessa was having an affair. She had been having an affair for over a year. With her business partner. The same business partner she'd introduced to Ryan at a dinner party last Christmas, shaking his hand, smiling warmly, saying, "Derek is like a brother to me." I sat in my small room that night, staring at the evidence spread across my bed, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Power. Not the cruel, manipulative kind of power that Vanessa wielded. But the quiet, righteous power of truth. The power of a woman who has been pushed to the edge and has decided, finally, irrevocably, that she will not fall. I chose my moment carefully. It was a Sunday, Ryan's day off. Vanessa had organized a family brunch, inviting her parents, her sister, a few of her important friends. She loved these events because they gave her an audience, a stage on which to perform the role of perfect wife, perfect hostess, perfect woman. I cooked all morning. Eggs Benedict, fresh fruit, homemade pastries. I set the table with Vanessa's best china and even arranged flowers in a crystal vase. When the guests arrived, they complimented the food, the decor, the ambience. Vanessa accepted every compliment as if she'd done it all herself. "You've outdone yourself, darling," her mother said, kissing her cheek. "I just love making our home beautiful," Vanessa replied, not glancing once in my direction. I stood in the kitchen doorway, apron still on, watching the performance. And then, when everyone was seated, when the champagne was poured and the laughter was flowing, I walked into the dining room. "Eleanor," Vanessa said, her smile tightening. "Did you need something? We're in the middle of brunch." "I know," I said. My voice was calm. Eerily calm. The kind of calm that comes when you've burned through every other emotion and all that's left is clarity. I just thought everyone might be interested in hearing a few things. Ryan frowned. "Mom, what's going on?" "Sit down, sweetheart," I said gently. "This won't take long." Vanessa's eyes narrowed. For the first time, I saw a flicker of fear behind the mask. "Eleanor, this really isn't the time." "Actually," I said, "it's exactly the time." I reached into my apron pocket and pulled out a folder, printed emails, bank statements, photos. I had made copies of everything. Sarah had reviewed every document and confirmed they were admissible. I placed the folder on the table. 3 years ago, I sold my home and gave $150,000 to help pay for this house. I was told it was temporary, that things would get better. Instead, I've been treated like a servant in a home I helped pay for. Vanessa's mother shifted uncomfortably. "Eleanor, dear, this is hardly. Please let me finish." My voice didn't waver. Not once. "Last month, I discovered that Vanessa has been working with a lawyer to transfer the deed of this house entirely into her name, using my contribution as an untraceable gift. She has also been planning to have me placed in an assisted living facility by fabricating concerns about my mental health." The room went dead silent. Ryan's face drained of color. "What?" I opened the folder and slid the printed emails across the table. Ryan grabbed them, his hands shaking. His eyes moved across the words, and with every line, I watched something break inside him. "This can't be real," he whispered. "It's real," I said. "Every word." Vanessa stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "She's lying. She's been going through my things. This is an invasion of privacy. Ryan, she's delusional. This is exactly what I was worried about. Her memory, her behavior." "Sit down, Vanessa," Ryan said. His voice was quiet. Dangerously quiet. The kind of quiet that fills a room like smoke before a fire. Vanessa blinked. "Ryan." I said, "Sit down." "She Saturday." Ryan looked at me, his eyes glistening. "Mom, is there more?" I hesitated. This was the part one had dreaded. Because the affair wasn't just a betrayal of Ryan, it was a humiliation. And no mother wants to be the one to deliver that kind of blow to her child. But he deserved the truth. "All of it?" "Yes," I said softly. "There's more." I pulled out the final set of printouts. The emails to Derek Holloway. The intimate messages. The photos of them together at a hotel, time-stamped, geotagged, undeniable. I didn't hand them to Ryan. I set them face down on the table and said, "You can read these when you're ready. But you should know that Vanessa has been having an affair with Derek Holloway for over a year." The silence that followed was the loudest thing I had ever heard. Vanessa's mother gasped. Her sister covered her mouth. The important friends exchanged wide-eyed glances, already composing the gossip they'd spread by evening. And Vanessa, perfect, polished, untouchable Vanessa, crumbled. Her mask didn't just slip. It shattered. Her face twisted with rage, then panic, then something raw and ugly that she had spent years hiding beneath layers of charm and control. "You had no right," she hissed at me. "You had no right to go through my things. You're nothing. You're a nobody. You're a cafeteria worker who got lucky because her son is smart. You think anyone in this room respects you? You think Ryan will choose you over me?" Ryan stood up. He didn't yell. He didn't curse. He didn't throw anything or slam his fist on the table. He simply turned to Vanessa with the kind of devastated calm that only comes from someone whose entire world has just been pulled out from under them. "Get out of my house," he said. Vanessa's face froze. "Ryan, you can't be serious." "Our house," she corrected quickly. "Our house, Ryan. My name is on the—" "Your name isn't on anything yet," he said. "My lawyer has already been notified. And as of this morning, the deed transfer has been blocked." Her jaw dropped. He reached across the table, picked up the folder, and held it up. I spoke to Sarah Chen this morning. Mom called me at 6 a.m., told me everything, and showed me the evidence. I've been sitting here for the last 2 hours waiting for you to come clean. You didn't. You never would have. Vanessa's composure dissolved completely. Tears streamed down her face, but they weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of fury, of a plan falling apart, of losing control. Your mother ruined us, she spat. Ryan shook his head. No. My mother saved me. He turned to me. And for a moment, the 30-year-old doctor disappeared, and I saw my little boy, the one who used to crawl into my bed during thunderstorms, the one who held my hand at his father's funeral, the one who once told me he wanted to protect people like I had always protected him. Mom, he said, his voice breaking. I'm so sorry. I should have seen it. I should have protected you. I crossed the room and wrapped my arms around him. He buried his face in my shoulder, and for the first time in years, I felt his body shake with sobs. You did protect me, I whispered. You became the man I always knew you would be. The aftermath was swift and brutal for Vanessa. Sarah filed an emergency petition to freeze all joint assets. The evidence of fraud, financial manipulation, and the nursing home scheme was presented to a judge within a week. Vanessa's lawyer, the one who had helped her draft the deed transfer, dropped her as a client the moment the elder abuse allegations surfaced. Ryan filed for divorce. It was uncontested within 60 days because Vanessa's legal position was indefensible. The prenuptial agreement she had so carefully crafted to protect herself. It contained a fidelity clause. The affair with Derek Holloway voided every protective provision she'd built in. She walked away with nothing. Her real estate business collapsed within a month. Clients, already skeptical, fled when word spread about the financial irregularities. Derek Holloway, her lover and business partner, distanced himself immediately, posting a public statement claiming he had no knowledge of Ms. Vanessa Reed's personal or financial misconduct. Vanessa's parents tried to sue Ryan for emotional distress. The case was dismissed in preliminary hearings. The judge, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, reportedly said from the bench, "The only party who has suffered emotional distress in this matter is Mrs. Eleanor Price, and she has shown more grace and restraint than anyone in this courtroom deserves." I cried when Sarah told me that. Not from sadness, but from relief. From the feeling of being seen after years of invisibility. 6 months later, Ryan and I sat on the porch of a new house, smaller than the one he'd shared with Vanessa, but filled with warmth. He had used part of the divorce settlement to buy it, and the first thing he did was set up a room for me. Not a guest room tucked at the end of a hallway. A real room, with big windows that let in the morning light and a bookshelf he'd built himself. On the door, he had hung a small wooden sign. "Mom's room. You don't have to stay here forever," he said, handing me a cup of tea. "But I want you to know you always have a place. Not as a guest. Not as a helper. As my mother. As family." I ran my fingers over the sign, tracing the letters. My vision blurred. "Ryan," I said quietly, "there's something I never told you." He looked at me, concerned. "What is it?" I set down my tea and reached under my bed. I pulled out a battered, weathered scrapbook, the one I had started the day he was born and added to every year since. "I've been keeping this for 30 years, I said, opening to the first page. A tiny hospital bracelet was taped inside, next to a Polaroid of a wrinkled, red-faced newborn. Every milestone. Every gold star. Every terrible haircut." He laughed, his eyes glistening. "I was going to give it to Vanessa," I said. "The night before your wedding. I thought if she saw the life we'd built, she'd understand. She'd love you the way you deserve to be loved." His smile faded. "And she didn't even look at it. She told me I wasn't part of the family." Ryan closed his eyes. A single tear rolled down his cheek. "Mom. But she was wrong," I said firmly. "She was wrong about everything. Because this, you and me, sitting on this porch, drinking tea, looking at pictures of your terrible haircuts, this is family. Not a house. Not a bank account. Not a performance. Just love. Stubborn, messy, imperfect love." He took the scrapbook from my hands, opened it to a page near the middle, and laughed. It was a photo of him at age 10, covered in mud, holding a frog, grinning like he'd just conquered the world. "I remember this," he said. "You were furious. I was terrified. You were supposed to be at soccer practice. I was catching frogs. You were giving me a heart attack." We both laughed. And the sound filled the porch, the yard, the quiet street warm and real and alive. That night, after Ryan had gone to bed, I sat in my room, the scrapbook open on my lap. I turned to the last page, blank, waiting. I picked up a pen and wrote. Today, I remembered something I'd almost forgotten. I am not just a mother who sacrificed. I am not just a woman who endured. I am Eleanor Price. I survived. I fought. And I won not because I was loud, but because I was patient. Not because I was powerful, but because I was right. And sometimes, that's enough. I closed the scrapbook, placed it on my nightstand, and turned off the light. Outside, the stars were bright. The house was quiet. And for the first time in 3 years, I slept without dreaming of storms. Some people will read this story and think it's about a terrible daughter-in-law. Others will think it's about a son who should have known better. But I think it's about something simpler and more important than either of those things. It's about a mother who was told she wasn't enough and proved, in the end, that she was everything. Because here's the truth about people like Vanessa. They build their lives on appearances, on control, on the assumption that kindness is weakness and silence is submission. They believe they can manipulate anyone, discard anyone, replace anyone. But they always underestimate the quiet ones. They always underestimate the mothers. And that, in the end, is what destroys them. Not revenge. Not anger. Not even justice. Just the simple, unshakable, indestructible truth. A mother's love doesn't expire. It doesn't diminish. It doesn't bow to threats or crumble under cruelty. It waits. It endures. And when the time comes, it rises not with fury, but with a grace that no amount of money, beauty, or ambition can ever match.
Vanessa told me I would never be good enough for her family. She was right about one thing. I was never meant for her family. I was always and only meant for mine.